It's interesting because as you're saying that, I'm hearing spirit
Mm,
talking to me, and that's how I work. It's how a lot of mediums work. I work open to spirit, and when you kind of open the door, as you have in this session, they want to come in and they want to share. And what I'm hearing and what I'm being told is it's all about the human condition. And it's important that we as souls separate the human condition from the spirit condition or the soul experience. And what we see as suffering, the soul may see as advancement.
Today, I am honored to have Ann VanOrsdel back on the show. Ann and I met at a Suzanne Giesman, who came on the show a while back, at a mediumship workshop. And wow, Ann has taken this to a whole different level. And I think the beauty of talking to someone about Ann is that I've known her so long and had sessions, and family have had sessions. There's a trust, such a trust which we all need, we always want to trust, but sometimes it's just difficult when you don't know the person that well. So I'm so excited you're here. So let me tell you a little bit about Anne. She's a lifelong student of spirit and is dedicated to proving the existence of life after physical death. She holds mediumship certifications from highly respected global organizations, requiring more than 20 years of measured readings, testing protocols. In addition to her services, she enjoys donating time for the highest good of others. As a young girl, Anne had a knowing about people and animals. Spirit often visited her, although it took many years to understand how to manage and work with the energy. She felt a calling to explore the afterlife and moved forward into a sense of knowing that there is a higher power, influencing and supporting us throughout our earthly existence. And she said, which I have said many times on this show, why don't more people talk about this? I mean, this is the most exciting thing that could ever be. And why has it been so taboo? So she's been determined to uncover the authenticity of science and undeny authenticity, science, and undeniable proof behind her experiences. So there's lots more of where she studied, one being the Arthur Findlay College, which many of you have heard about on this show. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her circle, and I may use the wrong terminology here, but what they've been up to and how that has even opened up her world even more so. So great to see you, Anne. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see you again and to be
Yeah,
here and just share about spirit. Right?
I know. It's been a long time, and we've been through some things together, and it's just so great to have you here. So let's go. It's quite a while when you came on before, and I do want to jump into what you're doing now because it's so fascinating. But just tell us little bit about your journey. You said as a child you felt a connection, and how you became a spiritual medium and an intuitive coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I was a kid, and I think many people can relate to this, I had experiences or imaginary friends who I kind of kept that to myself. And there was a recurring theme and a recurring dream I would have. And I always ended up in my parents' bed because it was felt a little claustrophobic, is how I would describe it.
Yeah.
And what I now know is those were visitations from my spirit helpers, perhaps from past loved ones that I just didn't really recognize. But I know now that they were trying to get my attention. And that's really what it was about. Nothing scary at all, just as spirit will do and does today, tries to figure out what works with this person, with this individual. How can we get her attention? So that's how it started. And then it really wasn't until after the birth of my second son, I have two boys, that I started to be really curious about the afterlife. And I don't really know what caused that. Both of my parents were still living at the time. I hadn't really lost anyone close to me. My grandparents had passed, elderly and to be expected, but it wasn't something that was, I felt that I was seeking, that I was, needed answers for. It was calling to me. It was more of a pull. So I started to research a little bit. I read books, anything I could get my hands on. I studied with those that were recommended to me. And more than one of those tutors and mediums said, well, one day you're going to be doing this.
Mhm.
And of course, I said, no, I don't. Public speaking is not my thing. This is not what I'm going to. I'm not a teacher. I'm in marketing. This is not what I do. And sure enough, over the years, it has panned out to be just as they described. And so I really just started following that. And those that know me know that I'm a really dedicated, can be all consuming. When something is really interesting
Mhm.
to me, I want to dig in deeper. I want to find out what that means. So I had a first visit to the Arthur Findlay College. It was like coming home. Many people say that when they go there. But what I realized when I went there, there were so many like-minded people. I felt normal.
Mhm.
It wasn't taboo. It was normal. And these are people from all over the world. In fact, I was one of maybe only two or three Americans in that particular course. So since that first time studying there, I've studied abroad, not just at the Arthur Findlay College, but with mentors that I have in Holland and in England and other countries where it just has that same familiar feeling of this
Mhm.
feels natural to my soul. And so over the years, like I said, I've studied. I have done quite a bit of private readings. I've done group readings. I've done group presentations. In 2018, I think it was, I was certified by the Helping Parents Heal organization, which you're familiar with.
Mhm.
Wonderful organization that really embraces the afterlife. And I think it's so healthy and so wonderful for those families. And I've done quite a bit with them as well, and volunteering my time to help to bring through the children of these members to know that they're still living, they're still thriving. It's just a different existence.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. What was there any, yeah, I know that Helping Parents Heal, well, all of the
Yeah.
programs that you have to, prove yourself, if you will. It's very rigorous. I know that you have to
It
do a
is.
lot, as it should be, because it's so
Yes.
important. Were there any like aha moments for you,
Mhm.
in the beginning, like, oh my
So many.
gosh, this is like true.
So many, so many. I thought about that as I was preparing to talk to you today. I thought, there's so many. It would take us days to have this
Yeah,
interview.
yeah.
So many, but what I would say they all have a similar theme. And for me, I think that is when I sit with someone. So if I were sitting and doing a reading for you, and of course I've done that in person with you in your home,
Yes.
I want my sitter or my client, we use those two terms, to feel the energy of their loved ones. So I would say that is a theme. The aha moments that have been most impactful for me and for those that I sit with, they have felt their loved ones around.
Mm,
Whether that is a physical touch, which is very rare, or maybe it's just an energetic shift. Oftentimes it can be a smell. If there's a particular cologne, or maybe this person was a smoker, those sorts of things come through. I always love when spirit gives me names. That's a beautiful thing. Nicknames, things that would be only known to that particular sitter.
right.
Those are always special, never expected, but always very special when the spirit
Mhm.
world's able to do that. And I say the spirit world is able to do that because it is all about them.
Right.
I am simply the messenger, simply the vessel. And, that is something that I think people need to really, really understand about
Mhm.
mediumship. No medium is 100% accurate. And we shouldn't strive to be. What I think we should strive to do is to help bridge the gap between the two worlds, create a meaningful connection with our loved ones, and bring through, yes, evidence, because otherwise it's not mediumship without evidence, but also to bring through the love and the affection and the message that life continues on. I
Mhm.
think that's really the most important. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so as far as aha moments, I've certainly had them with my mental mediumship. Anytime I've done, demonstrations, I've been in demonstrations where I've been speaking and someone will be able to take the information and maybe it's like way back in the room, but from another space in the room, we'll hear a voice and no one's there.
Wow.
And so spirit shows up in different ways like that,
Hmm.
where it recently happened. I was doing a workshop in my home and someone thought I was in the other room and someone thought I was talking. And when they came to check on me, I was in a trance state and with my eyes closed and I was not speaking. So those sorts of things happen. And of course, we can pick them up on tape as EVPs, electronic
Yes.
voice phenomena, which you're aware of. But it also can happen right out in the open, given the right conditions, the right energy, and the right harmony. That's what the spirit world tells us. It's not just
Excellent.
because we say, please let it be. Those conditions have to be right for the spirit world to make that link, to impression upon myself as a medium or others to say the right things and to be heard with the right messages. Yeah.
Nice. Do you feel as if, well, first of all, I know you've been doing this for quite a while now, but how has it changed the way you walk in life? Because when I went down this path, which I hate the way it happened, but I'm so glad I'm on this path. I'm like a whole totally different person and in many different ways. How has it changed you?
I would agree with that as well. 100% different. It's helped me to realize that something bigger that we all, I think, feel like there's something greater in this life. But what is it? How do I tap into it? It's made me realize that we can do that we can tap into that next dimension, if you will.
Hmm.
It has changed me in every way. It's really helped me live every single day in the here and now to the fullest that I can. And that's not because I think when we're gone, we're gone. It's because I want to take into that next life the best me, the best connections that I possibly can.
Hmm.
And I believe that when we take our transition to the world of spirit, we all have different, I'll say, planes that we might reside on or in and within. And I want to make sure that, I've got the Ritz-Carlton. I'm ready for that.
Right, right.
Right? I want the best I can get.
Yeah.
So I think that adjusting my life, and that is my work life, my family life, my relationships, friendships, my mediumship, my coaching and teaching, the more that I can elevate that to a level where I know the spirit world is proud of the work, that's where I'm happiest.
Mhm. That's a
I don't
good way
want to
to
say I
put
don't,
it.
right? I don't want to say that I don't care about what the people here on earth think,
No,
but I'm
no.
really trying to please the spirit world
Right, right.
because they work so hard to get through to us. And I can only imagine the numbers of people who have these abilities that say, no, no, thank you. I'm not going to do that. That's not my path. And
Mhm.
we have free will. So absolutely they can and they do. And I've tried that path. I've tried that. I've tried to say this isn't for me or I'm not going to do this. But spirit pulls me back in.
Right, right.
They find a way. and they're really, really good at it, as you know, as
Yes.
they are very convincing. And so I would say it's changed my life in every way, shape, or form. And I would say one thing to those listening, and that is the biggest difference is I now live a life of gratitude. And I believe that gratitude, waking up with gratitude, going to bed every night with gratitude, is the connector for me, at least.
Yes.
Gratitude allows you to accept what's happening to you. We all have good days and bad days. We all have tragedy and loss in this lifetime. But if you can find a way to say, I'm grateful for the experiences, for the journey, for the lessons, then I believe you'll find a way to truly enjoy when it's time for you to transition.
Mm.
And it will be the greatest reunion with all of those that you love. And it will be bliss.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
What what has Spirit told you about suffering? You know,
Mhm.
suffering and why one must this gets into, I believe, our pre-birth plans and some other topics, you know, reincarnation, but why one, as everybody, my listeners know, I work in Africa, why one, you know, little girl is hungry and orphaned, and here is another person living in, you know, Colorado with this and that and that and this, and it's not really the whereabouts, it's more of the condition and that sort of thing. What is the suffering all about, and why one suffers more, if you will, than another?
Well, it's interesting because as you're saying that, I'm hearing spirit
Mm,
talking to me. And that's how I work. It's how a lot of mediums work. I work open to spirit. And when you kind of open the door, as you have in this session, they want to come in and they want to share. And what I am hearing and what I'm being told is it's all about the human condition. And it's important that we as souls separate the human condition from the spirit condition or the soul experience.
mhm,
And what we see as suffering, the soul may see as advancement, or the soul may see as filling a gap of some sort that was needed for that individual.
right.
How we live on this earth, the sustenance that we need to survive, the healing that needs to happen, that's all human condition. It's not part of the soul or the spirit because, of course, we live on. The soul never dies, it can't die. So I don't want to say there isn't suffering or that that's just an impression in this lifetime. It's very real. I definitely don't want to say any of that.
Mhm,
I think what I'm being reminded of at this moment from spirit is that much of the suffering that happens on earth has been created by humans through war, through turbulent times, through ego, and other human conditions that create that. And I don't believe we will know, and nor am I qualified to say why there is suffering. I don't think that anyone living on this earth today can speak to that or should speak to that. But I do believe we will start to see and understand it more when we do
right.
transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And there's so much empathy for those that are suffering around the world,
Mm,
and also more reason for more of this work, for more people like you in Africa helping. Even if you can help one individual, it's so worth it.
yeah. Yeah.
So Spirit is calling us. And I think that calling is just getting deeper and deeper and broader and broader.
What do you think will how could this, well, first of all, do you feel like there's so much research out on consciousness right now. I like my best podcast right now is the telepathy tapes. I don't know if you've listened to
I
those yet.
haven't, but you're not the first person that's told me about that.
Yeah, and I just interviewed Dr. Diane Hennessy, and it
Yeah.
started from her research, and it's just so much on consciousness and the continuity of life, and that there's something bigger. And it does astound me that people just don't want to open up their hearts to that unless
Yeah.
they have a tragedy, and then many of them really don't either. But no judgment. I think everyone has their own path. But if that did become more of the thought process of
Mm.
more of the world, most of the world, how would that change humanity, and how would it change the future for our children?
Oh, I think it can only be positive. I believe that thoughts become things, right? If we tell ourselves we're not enough or we can't do something, we probably won't do that thing that we
Hmm.
had in our mind. We won't take that risk. We won't put ourselves out there for that next job opportunity or relationship or whatever it might be. So I think that thoughts become things, but I also believe that our energy is a ripple effect.
Yes.
So what you put out, you will receive back. If you are continually putting out negative energy or doubt, it may be why you're suffering. It may be why you're not able to get through a certain situation. But if you can find a way to turn that around, and again, attach gratitude and say, whatever the meaning is behind this, I'm willing to accept it and move forward. And I want to open up to greater things. I think the more that people do that, and the more that they put out those positive ideas, thoughts, patterns, that will resonate and
Mhm.
vibrate around the world. Spirit tells us so often about the importance of vibration. If you think about sound waves, you think about, telecommunication waves, all of these different things, it's all a frequency. And the spirit world is just operating on a different frequency. So the more we can start to tune into that frequency that's outside of our mind, outside of our ego, the better we will individually be and the better we will make the world.
Right. What do
Yeah.
you say though, Anne, to I so appreciate what you're saying, and I'm wondering, when you have a client though that is in the depths of despair, it's easy to say, have, find some gratitude, but at
Yeah.
some, at the beginning, there's none of that. It just seems so, so how do you, a person who's listening that is just thinking, I don't have gratitude. I don't, that is, how does a person just begin? Or is it just a matter of just letting time go by and just trying to get through that as you move on into out of those extreme grief and more into, and it doesn't have to be losing someone, it's many things in life. Once again, we all go through that. So as an intuitive coach or a medium, how do you begin with
Yeah.
that?
Well, I first begin with compassion and say,
Of course.
go easy on yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Give yourself a break. And no one's saying you need to even get out of bed today,
Mm.
right? I mean, I've had times where I've done readings for people that will not get out of bed. Now, that's not the best time to have a mediumship reading because, again, what I said about vibration. If
Right.
your vibration is down here and your loved ones are trying to reach you up here, do you see the disconnect?
Yes, yes.
So you want to work on yourself. You want to strive for that gratitude. Give it time. What I say to people is be gentle with yourself, give it time, but also give yourself a deadline.
Mm,
I'm okay today, still not going to get out of bed, still not going to see anyone, maybe not even shower, but tomorrow I'm going to try that, or the next day, or the next day. So give yourself kind of bite size, manageable goals because you're going to feel better when you hit them.
mhm.
When we close our rings on our Apple Watch, we feel so good that we did that, you know?
Thank God I don't have one of those, but
I probably shouldn't. But it's like that. It's giving yourself permission
right.
to be you, to be okay with that. And I would also say if you're not ready to have a mediumship reading or to talk with someone, whether it's a therapist or a friend or another loved one, could you be ready to sit in the quiet and just allow whatever's meant for you?
Mhm. It's so
It can be
important.
meditation, that can be healing, and meditation takes many forms, whether you're sitting in full darkness or you're out walking, riding a bike, swimming. All of that is meditative. So I think giving yourself some goals that are manageable that you can attain will help you get on that next step because I think once you start to put that energy out there, it becomes a snowball effect. And the spirit world grabs onto that. And then they'll start to help you and guide you. There are no coincidences. They'll guide you to the medium that's right for you.
Mm.
You'll all of a sudden, this happened after my dad passed. He passed in 2020 of complications from COVID and a heart disease. So it was very unexpected. He had COVID, we knew that, but we certainly didn't expect him to have a heart attack and pass that day. And I was asking him afterwards, I said, I just need to know that you're here. And I was sitting I have a little closet that is completely dark. It's my blackened room where I sit and just accept whatever spirit gives to me. And for some reason that day, I did have someone else joining me, and we were sitting in the power, sitting in which is a little bit like a meditative state, but I consider meditation a bit passive and sitting in the power as being active. So I'm actively saying to my spirit friends, please come close. Please blend with me. And that particular day, I had hit the record button on my phone. I'm by myself in a closet. Let's start there. So I don't know what I was trying to pick up, but I just felt guided to do that.
Right.
And I hit record, and I didn't hear anything in the room at the time, but something made me go back and listen to that afterwards. And I still have it, and I hear it's very clear on my recording. I heard these words from the spirit world spoken onto the recording. We're here. We're here
Oh, wow.
twice. And I remember dropping the phone. I was sitting in bed when I was listening to this, and I just
Right.
dropped it in my lap, like, is this real? The next day, I'm driving in a lot of traffic in Scottsdale, and I'm coming up to a light. It's green, it's getting ready to turn red. Out of nowhere comes a car and pulls in front of me to stop at this red light. And I first thought, oh my gosh, where did this car come from? The light just turned red. I had to put my brakes on pretty quickly. Nothing, it wasn't a scary situation. It was just why would they cut in front of me at a
Right,
red light?
right.
And I was immediately drawn to the license plate. And the license plate on this car said, I'm here too.
I know.
The next day. And so, what are the odds of that? I
W-
mean, come on, you can't explain that away.
Yes,
You
yes.
just can't. And I knew because it was the make of car that my dad always wanted. And I knew that was my dad's message. He
Mhm.
made that car speed up and do what it did so I would see the license plate. And I took a picture of it. The fact that I got it at a red light and I heard Spirit say to me, snap a picture. You're going to want to keep this.
Wow. Wow.
And I had just enough time to get my phone from my bag that was in the passenger seat, take the picture, put the phone back safely, and the light turned green.
Mm. And isn't it interesting how you and I have been in this field uh, for so long, or been learning about these things, and we're still always so astounded. It's
It's so
it's
exciting.
so beautiful, isn't it?
I'm like a kid in a candy store when these things
Yes.
happen.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, you mentioned my circle. I have a home circle.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that.
And maybe this would be a good time to go there because the home circle is really the heart of mediumship, or at least it was
Back in
100 years ago
yes.
when people didn't have all of this technology and they didn't have all of the distractions. What did they do? They sat together in someone's living room or parlor or whatever you want to call it, and they visited and they talked about meaningful things. And so the home circle was born. People started to sit. They started to experience things happening around them. Maybe it sounds. Like I said earlier, that can happen in the middle of a room. Then they decide, wow, what if we turn the lights down? What could happen then? And mediums are born. There's trance speaking happening. There's physical mediumship being introduced. The spirit world makes us mediums. We don't make ourselves mediums. Think about that.
Right. But
The
because
more,
many say that everyone has the ability. So,
oh, I agree with that
right,
100%.
right.
We all have the ability within us, but I know I have the ability to play the piano, yet I don't play the piano,
Yes, yes.
and I kind of wish I did. I
Right,
will tell you, I kind of wish I did, but you have to pick those things that you're going to work on and
right,
educate yourself on, right?
right.
And so the home circle is really where it started
Mm,
and where many of the great mediums of all time, um, began their work. Minnie Harrison and her home circle, the
right.
Saturday Night Club. Tom Harrison has books written on that. His wife, Anne, is still living and a good friend of mine. Her books are amazing. Highly recommend anyone that wants to read about that. And the beautiful materializations and manifestations of their loved ones that came to them in the 1930s or 40s. I want to say it was in the 40s, which is when 30s and 40s perhaps, because they were sitting at home
Mm,
with people they cared about, and their loved ones would come in and visit them. Isn't that
that's
beautiful?
beautiful. What is the name of a
And
few of
sit
the
down and talk to them.
ah,
Yeah. Um, I can get you the names of the books
yeah, that would be
if you'd
great.
want to, reference them. But it is Tom Harrison is the
Okay.
author. Anne Harrison also has books that she's released now, and she's keeping his memory and the memory of the Saturday Night Club going strong.
Mm,
And there are so many ripple effects that come from that. Other wonderful mediums to listen to, Leslie Flint,
yes. And there's a lot
who,
of tapes out on him,
oh,
right?
the
Yeah.
recordings, the
Yes.
archive recordings from the Leslie Flint Trust, and those I can also link for you as well for your
Mm,
listeners. Um, I think now I've listened to every one of them. There's over 100. I mean, there's probably hundreds over the years that I've listened to. Just put your earbuds in and you just enjoy. And some of them are from, the 1930s, 1940s, 50s. Um, and so, but they've been restored. And those are truly amazing to listen to the voices of loved ones coming through, speaking in their own voice. And this
mhm.
could be many different languages. Clearly nothing that the medium could create or recreate. Um, just really tremendous examples and proof of afterlife. If you go back and you look at some of these original, wonderful mediums,
Mhm.
um, and we do have several today that are sitting in home circles. Many of them are private, like ours is. We keep it quiet. We do it for the good of the spirit world. Um, but when and if the spirit world just says it's time for you to go public, it's time for you to share this, it's time for you to have other people sit with you, we'll do that
Yeah. Do
because
you
they're in
ever
charge.
do home circles? I know of one person who they do circles, but they actually have people come in on Zoom also. Can that
Mhm.
can that be done? And do you think it's as I'm sure it's totally valid, but I'm just wondering about there's just such a different energy when people are together. But once again, it's all about frequency and vibration. But now I'm kind of
Absolutely.
talking about the human state of mind, you know?
Yes. I think that much can be done on Zoom, like we're
Yeah,
doing here.
right.
And that's the mental capacity of it. Absolutely. Transcommunication, mediumship readings, no different, whether you're in person or on Zoom or on the phone, it's all mental.
Mm-hmm.
Where our spirit friends tell us is the divide is for the physical phenomena and the
Right,
physical mediumship.
right.
When we first started sitting in our circle, we there were a few of us in person, but then we had others in Europe that were calling in via WhatsApp and or Zoom. And our spirit friend said, there's too much disturbance.
Right.
It's kind of like there's a disturbance in the force, it's if it's
Yeah,
Star
yeah,
Wars or
yeah.
something. Um, but so we abandoned that. And we said, okay, we're just going to go with in-person sitting. And that was specifically for the safety of our medium, which in physical mediumship is the number one priority. Must keep your medium safe. And for the best outcome from our spirit helpers.
Mm,
And I talk about safety with physical. That could be a whole other conversation, but it might be interesting for your listeners to know that physical mediumship includes the use of ectoplasm most times. And ectoplasm is created by the spirit world from the medium's body, can also be taken from the sitters of the circle to add to the energy. And it is light sensitive.
mhm.
It comes from within the human body. And they've explained it to me is similar to when a baby is in the womb, it's dark. When a seed is in the ground, it is in darkness that it grows. That is the analogy they're using for the ectoplasm.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So that is what allows this full materialization to happen for physical mediumship. Now, there are other experiments that have happened over the years. The skull experiment is one of those that was 100% energy based. There was not ectoplasm involved. And so we know that the spirit world is experimenting. And I love that. I'm probably most excited about the experimentation
Right.
because for me, I need evidence. I need proof. And my spirit team is always laughing about this when we do sit in circle. They'll give us something. They're speaking through our medium and they'll give us information. Maybe it's a new visitor to the circle and they'll give us clues. Marla, you'll love this. They'll give us clues. They won't give us the answers, but they'll tell us where to go and research these clues. And let me tell you how fun it is when we find out they're right. It is so much fun. And so some things are exploratory and experimental in nature with the spirit world. Other things are just very straightforward. They tell you exactly what they want and how it's going to be. They do not predict. In fact, something was said in our circle Sunday night, and because I asked the question, and they kind of backtracked and said, we really shouldn't be sharing this information. It's something that you have to find on your own, but this one
Interesting.
time we'll let it go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how does that come to you if you're in a circle with these
Mhm.
people and you're all quiet meditating? Is how how do the messages come to you in in a situation
Yeah.
like that?
Well, we have two circles. One is a trance circle, and in
Mm-hmm.
my trance circle, I sit with three people that are here in the States and two that are in Europe.
Right.
So we do that on WhatsApp or Zoom, but right now we're doing it on WhatsApp because we don't, we want to, the less disruption or the less technology that's introduced into the room, I
Mm-hmm.
feel is better. I want to give them the best possible environment we can give them. And that's a trance circle. So what happens in that is we will all sit together and we will all go into the altered state. And then one of us might start to speak and share a message from a guide. And typically in the trance communication, at least for our circle, those that are coming through and speaking through us are guides that have been with us probably our entire lifetime
Right.
that we've gotten to know over doing this work and sitting and just putting in the reps, so to speak. And they will typically speak um, philosophy. They will share wisdom with us. Um, and that's the spoke, it comes from the mouth and the vocal cords of that individual
Right.
medium. No ectoplasm involved there. There are times when you're in a very deep trance state that you will hear the spirit world speak in their own voice, in their own language, and that is really special.
In
It
their
doesn't
own
happen all the
language.
time.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I sat with other trance mediums who are much more experienced and evolved than I am, who are able to speak many different languages, whatever language that comes through their spirit helper. And that's incredible to witness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is it that I've been to a few seances, and it seems that the people who have, and they've been incredible, but and the people who have come through, there it's this like really high squeaky voice, like these helpers.
Mm,
Is there is that the way it is
yeah.
usually, or that just happened to be the seances that I was in?
Well, that's a great question. So, what I was talking about just now is trance, but this is a great segue into physical.
Right,
So, the
right,
seances you've sat in would be physical, where you're sitting in the dark.
right.
It's possible that some circles, and we do this too, we experiment in red light. I know that Tom Harrison, the Minnie Harrison Circle, they did use red light and were able to get wonderful photographs of their spirit friends. That is up to the spirit team, 100%. That is really their decision. So the seances that I've sat in as well with wonderful physical mediums, and there's only a handful in the world that are doing these public seances, as you know, um, authentically. I will add that.
Yes, yes.
Those that are doing it authentically, you know, you feel the energy of spirit. And what happens in those physical, so we have a trance circle, and that's what happens. When we sit for physical, we're sitting together in person here in my home in Arizona. And we're sitting in full darkness because we want our medium to develop the ectoplasm and we want to have loved ones or spirit friends come through and speak to us in their own voice, in their own language, or whatever that may be. And so, what you're describing is that many physical mediums and their circles, and I want to really emphasize the importance of the circle members.
Mm,
Heard this in the past, but I didn't internalize it until I had my own circle. How very important every single sitter is in a physical seance. You've got the medium who is surrounded by the circle members who they sit with typically on a weekly basis. So we've been sitting together now for 6 months in person every
wow.
single week.
Wow.
Unless someone is sick, we do not sit when they're sick, or if you're on vacation, but the rest of the circle still sits because building that energy, building that harmony in that same space is very critical. So what happens is you start to meet your spirit team. And many of these circles have a young child or a spirit friend who will represent as a young child in the seance. And they have really two purposes. One is to relax the audience.
Mm,
If a child comes through and they're laughing and giggling, and maybe they have this high-pitched voice,
right.
they're kind of funny, it automatically lessens the tension,
Interesting.
doesn't it?
Yes. Yes.
It's kind of fun. It brings a fun and frivolity and joy to the circle. And that it's all purposeful. It's all intelligence and it's all purposeful. And I had experienced that in sitting with the other authentic mediums, physical mediums in my past. And I wondered the same thing. I thought,
Uh-huh.
why these children coming in?
Right.
And I'll tell you, with our circle, we have one as well. But what's interesting with our circle is that the one that comes through and presents as a child was actually, she told us who she was. She's a guide connected to me. She was actually a nun that lived in the Middle East and then moved to Boston. And she passed into spirit in October of 1937. And for years, I've had people tell me that there's a nun around me, someone wearing a habit. And of course, they would have back in those days.
Hmm.
But she now comes to our circle as a young girl. And her job is to bring joy. And to, when the energy might get a little heavy, she pops in and she's laughing hysterically.
Right.
And it could not be further from the energy of our medium, who's very calm and very demure and very private. But when she comes in and laughs, you just can't help the energy to just lifts.
Right. And it comes through the mediums.
It comes through the mediums,
Yes, voice
currently
or
vocal
that.
cords, but
Right.
as we work through and our goal is to get to that state of ectoplasm so we can all hear it in her real voice.
Right.
And so that's really the purpose of that particular child
Interesting.
helper in a physical seance.
Yeah.
And there are other helpers. Most circles, and we are the same, have someone whose role is to kind of share the wisdom, be the main gatekeeper, if you will. There is always, in our circle, it is a Native American. His role is definitely gatekeeper. If he senses any negative energy whatsoever, any energy that is not vibrating at a level where we need it to be, they keep them out. There's a safety aspect that those working behind the scenes are so busy doing. We had Spirit tell us a few weeks ago that there were more than 100 scientists in spirit gathered around our circle working with us every week.
Wow.
I mean, what?
Yeah.
Mind boggling, mind boggling. And they told us that because they wanted us to understand the level of commitment on their side was matching the level of dedication and commitment on our side.
How beautiful.
Isn't that amazing?
Ah, that is amazing.
Scientists and children and loved ones and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for those listening, if you are fortunate enough to sit in a physical seance with a reputable physical medium, it will change your life.
Mhm.
My father has come through. He came through just this last September, spoke to me, held my head, kissed my forehead.
Wow.
I felt teeny little fingers of a baby for the woman next to me. We were holding hands, as you do in a
Yeah.
seance, to ensure that everyone is seated and no one could be doing something they're not supposed to be doing
Hmm.
to keep the authenticity. and the quality at the highest level. And the spirit world came through, the main guide for this medium, and said to the woman next to me, I believe you have a child in spirit. And she said, yes, I do. And it was a child that never took a breath on this earth.
Wow.
And she wasn't sure of the gender. And so she was given the gender, and it was brought through by a woman who said that she was in charge of the babies on the other side of life
Oh,
and would keep her safe until her mom and dad were there to greet her again. And she said she would like to touch her mother. Is that okay? And I'm holding this woman's hand, and I felt teeny little fingers touching up our arm. And then she was describing what was happening to her, and you know how babies just kind
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
touch
All just
you?
all over you. Yes.
That's what was happening there with the littlest, teeniest hands. And we were both, there was not a dry eye in that room.
Of course not.
And it was so touching. And of course, this is a baby, so she didn't speak. But the caregiver for her, who was there, kept saying, oh, no, no, you need to come back to me. We can't stay with mama right now, and it was a very touching
Right.
moment. And the medium is from Europe, and this woman who was coming through was a very Southern accent, just
I
couldn't be more
love it.
different.
Right, right.
And since I think, the only American in the room at that time, it wasn't coming from anyone in the room.
Yeah.
So that was very, very
Uh,
special.
so how would someone find an authentic physical medium
Yeah,
if they wanted
yeah.
to?
I think it's important to read, to ask others, to get recommendations.
Right,
I'm not here to say that the ones that I've sat with are the absolute best,
right, right.
but I'm very careful and selective and discerning. And those that I have sat with, and I've sat with three, um, are celebrity, I suppose you could say. Some have been on television, others are much more private. But I think it's word of mouth
Yeah,
is the short answer.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
And in even where I've had an amazing experience with someone else may still have questions about their experience.
Right, right.
And that's normal and natural and human. Um, but those same mediums will say it's good to be discerning.
Mhm.
They are not there to tell you accept everything that's been put in front of you.
Right. Well, I
In
think you're
fact, it's
right.
the
It's
opposite.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like you want
Yeah.
evidence and
You
and
want
and,
evidence and you
and,
want to
and
feel
and
it.
spirit wants to give that to us.
That is their number one goal.
Yeah, yeah,
That is so true.
yeah.
And so I would love to see more people experiencing that and go in with an open mind and an open heart, because guess
Mm.
what? You can't explain this stuff away.
No, no, you cannot
Yeah,
explain it
no.
away.
There are
No.
times when I've asked the spirit world. I asked my father when he came through certain things, and he had some of the answers, but he said, I'm still the man that I was when I was on the earth. I
Wow.
don't graduate and all of a sudden become a scholar and
Right.
know about quantum physics.
Interesting.
He
Right,
said,
right.
I'm learning along with you.
Yeah.
So much so, Marla, when he came through the medium and tried to step into that ectoplasm to speak, I knew it was my father because of a few pieces of evidence he'd given. He had tried to come through at another seance in the States a couple of years ago and wasn't successful. And I had asked him, was that you? Was I right that you were trying to do that? And he said, yes, I couldn't get in. I couldn't figure it out.
Right.
And they say that he's described that it was like scuba diving, and you're underwater and then you're trying to speak through this thing that's in your mouth. And he described how challenging it is.
Mm.
So when he came through this time and was successful, the spirit world still had to coax him and help him out because he was very frustrated. And the first few words out of his mouth were, Can you hear me? I can't hear myself. And he was very frustrated, which my father would have been.
Yes, yes.
That matched his personality. And the spirit world came in and said, his spirit helper came in and said, your dad is struggling. Can we give him a moment? We're going to help him. And I said, I've got all the time in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, exactly.
And then
Exactly.
they were successful. So I
So,
can't explain how it happens.
uh,
It just does.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just encourage people just have an open mind and listen
Yeah.
and do, research and read the books
Yeah.
and go back and listen to the tapes. And we need to wrap this up. I can't keep you here all day, but I
Oh, I could.
I do have
Yes.
I do have a question. What do the spirits tell you what it's like on the other side?
Oh, I love this question. Well, it's different for everyone. But what I will tell you is I've had some describe their homes to me. All of them, the theme is it's as real on our side of life as it is on yours. Wow. Can you grasp that?
I know.
When we first transition, many tell me that they still have what they consider a physical body because it's more comfortable to them.
Right, right.
And their world around them, as they've created it, is very physical. Flowers, locations, places, smells. They don't need to eat food, but maybe they're still really attached to the physical plane and want to. So you get to ease your way into it. And then what they've said is after a certain amount of time, you just don't need it anymore.
Interesting.
And you release that physicality and you embrace the spiritual nature of who you are. And I have some that, they will come through and they will say, and they will describe their home, which would be for a sitter, the dream home that maybe he or she had always wanted.
Right.
The car they've wanted to drive. If you wanted to be a pilot, they're flying a plane. This is what we hear about. And, if you read the books from the Saturday Night Club from Tom Harrison, he describes this, their Aunt Ag, who was his mother's sister in spirit. She had passed to spirit before they started sitting. She was a regular visitor of the circle, and she would materialize in whatever needed to be, whatever form. If it needed to be your entire body, it would be. If it just needed to be a head and bust, it would be. And she would sit with them on a chair
Wow.
and talk about things that were happening on her side of life, things that were happening here. Just incredible. And they were very aware and are very aware. Your loved ones are aware of what's happening. They know what you're doing right now with me.
Mhm.
They know what's happening in your life. They are enjoying it with you. They are celebrating birthdays and anniversaries and gatherings with you if you
Yeah.
allow them in because they're there. Spirit comes through in our circle almost every week and will, right out of the intro, say something that's meaningful to one of us that no one else knew about,
Right, right.
just to let us know that they're guiding us and watching us and working with us.
Mhm.
So you're right. You said it earlier, which is have an open mind and an open heart,
Right.
and anything is possible.
It's so it's so exciting and so comforting just to know there's something bigger and better and maybe not bitter, you know what bigger than ourselves that we can reach out to for help and strength and just know that this is just a very, very small part of the story.
That's right.
Yeah.
And oftentimes spirit will come through. I recently had this happen in a small group reading where there were 6 women, and I knew that they were friends, but I didn't know how they knew each other. And I had a familiar sense, like there were three men coming through that I felt all knew each other. and knew the women in the group. Well, sure enough, they were the husbands of three of
Oh,
the women in the group.
wow.
And one of them impressioned upon me that his wife had cancer. Now, no one looked like were going through any sort of treatments, or there was nothing physically evident for
Right.
me to pick that up. But he really wanted me to say it out loud. And I was hesitant. As a medium, we have to be just, careful,
Right.
and sensitive. But I knew, I just had a feeling I knew that it was something I needed to say. And the minute it came out of my mouth, I said, "Your husband is talking about how you've recently been diagnosed with illness. Do you understand this?" And she said, "Yes, I have stage 4 cancer." And everyone in the room knew. Now I didn't know, but so I wasn't letting the cat out of the bag in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
yeah.
But it was the most evidential
Ah,
for all of those women. And turned out that two of the women were married to brothers in spirit who were coming through. So it was a very close family
right.
message
How
that needed to
beautiful for
happen.
all of you. What a,
And the reason I bring that up was because he said to me, "You're going to be okay." Now, if you say you have stage 4 cancer, you're probably not going to feel okay.
right, right.
But last I checked on her, and this would have been 4 years later now, she's doing okay. She's still with us in the physical.
Mm,
But I learned at that time that Spirit's message, the husband's message to her, was not, "Are you going to transition from death, from cancer?" But he was saying, no matter what happens, you're going to be okay.
right, right.
And that's the message. It wasn't a "will she die from this
Yes,
illness?" We're all going to die of something.
yes, yes.
His message was so profound and has stayed with me since that moment, which
Hmm.
was, "You need to tell her she's going to be okay."
Hmm.
And
Do
that's
you,
what he meant.
has Spirit told you? I've asked other people this. It's interesting that people do have an exit point, or they have a few exit points,
Yeah.
and but they're usually around the same time. Or I mean, is that what Spirit has told you?
They have not told me that. I have heard that, and I've heard that from other mentors that I've worked with.
Right.
One
Yeah.
in particular feels that we have 3 exit points that we choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have not personally, and I can only share what my spirit team has told me personally. I have been told we have free will, and that free will can possibly go back to a life plan that was a predestined plan,
Mm,
or we can alter that plan. So I don't know that I'm qualified to tell you.
right. Right. Interesting.
And I think we need more people that say that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because that's how we spread a lot of wrong information.
Right. Right.
And I have learned that. If there's
Mm,
anything I want people to take away is, please don't believe everything you hear just because it came from a medium.
right. Yeah. I
And
think you have to look in your own heart and
even
have
a
a
loved one.
knowing.
Yeah, a loved one can come
Right.
through and say this or that or the other, and it may or may not be true. They may not, even though they're now on the other side of life, they may not have the ability to see into that truth.
Right. Right.
So yeah, you have to be discerning, and it's okay to test. I'm not a fan of testing mediums, even though I've been tested, um, because the minute you start to go to that route and you start to insert questions and things, you run the risk of the medium's mind getting in the way.
Right.
Right? I had someone say to me, "We had a wonderful, beautiful session." I had read for her father. I didn't know that until the end. I didn't know they were connected. They had different names. But he had gifted her this session. And we got to the end, and I thought, wow, that was just like evidence after evidence. What your mom did so well. I was so proud of her mother in spirit. And she said, "Oh, I know, but I guess I just wish there was like one thing." And I heard her mother say, "She has something on her mind." that if she doesn't leave here knowing it, she'll be sad or disappointed or whatever. I can't control that.
Right.
And she said, I said, well, here's what I am getting. Your mother is saying to me that there's a stuffed animal and it's not a bear that would have been very significant to you. And she said, yes. Like she just perked up all of a sudden. Yes. And I said, and the stuffed animal has a human name, correct? She said, yes, yes. And I said, I know you want the name, but your mom's not giving me the name, so I can't make it up.
Right, right.
Went on with the reading. We're about ready to wrap it up at the end. I go to say goodbye to her and I said, well, wait. And I said the name of the stuffed animal. And she said, that is what I was wanting to hear the
Oh
entire
my gosh.
session.
Wow. Wow.
And, I bring that up because I don't control it.
Yeah.
But her mother was holding it back and holding it back until the very end to probably give her daughter the biggest send off she possibly could, but also as a lesson for me because they're always teaching us. I'm not going to give it to you just because you want it or you ask for it. I'm going to give it to you at the moment in the reading where you can be sure that it's not your mind stepping in and making a guess.
Mhm.
It just came out of nowhere. We were saying our
Wow.
goodbyes. We weren't even talking
Wow.
about
Wow.
the
What a
reading.
beautiful story. Well,
So
I
I
think
thought,
that's a wonderful thing to wrap this up on.
yeah.
Oh gosh, what it's just been great to spend time with you. Is
Oh,
there
you
anything you
too.
would like to wrap up with? You've
Mm,
covered almost everything,
gosh.
I think, or anything else you'd
Yeah.
like to say?
I just think, thank you to those that have gotten this far. Even
Mhm.
made it all the way through my talking and sharing with you. Thank you. I know that I do it for spirit, and I know that you were meant to listen to this message.
Mm,
And if it helps even one person, oh, I'm so honored. And I think keep trying, keep pushing, keep finding your own truth and connection with source and with spirit. It's out there.
yeah.
And we need it now more than ever in our world.
So, so true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Anne. And
Thank
if
you.
people want to find you or learn more about you, where would they go?
Yeah, they can go to my website. It's annvanorsdel.com. And I'm not currently doing private readings, but I do occasionally do small groups. And that's just because of my crazy work schedule. I don't do mediumship full time. I am a full-time marketing leader.
Yeah.
So I really have to fit this in. I do work with, I do mentoring with some students occasionally throughout the year as well. And I do workshops. If you're in the Arizona or Phoenix area, I have two coming up in April.
Oh,
I'm not
great.
sure when this is going to air, but I do have some coming up here in April in person, and those will be really special. And that information's on my events page. And I
Great.
try to keep that as updated as possible.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much. Truly
Thank
an
you.
honor. So much information. And you're really doing so much for the world in the spirit world. So thank you.
Oh, right back at you. Thank you for all you do.
It's great to see you again.
You too. Thanks so
Okay.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.